Lead Maine is pursuing some solutions for Maine. We're pushing for two specific fixes here regarding our Medicaid program, MaineCare. The first is in-person inspections of MaineCare providers. You've touched on that a little bit. We really haven't seen in-person inspections happening since COVID. It was a very convenient excuse for Maine government. And so now, you pick up a phone and that counts as an in-person visit, which you and I both know is not. So we are pushing for rulemaking that would say in-person means in-person. And then we're also putting payments on pause. If an entity is under a suspicion of fraud, that those future payments go into escrow instead of continuing to cut checks while we're trying to get money back. So those two pieces of rulemaking we are advancing. Does that match what has worked elsewhere? Are we missing something? We've got to start somewhere.
No, I think those are brilliant ideas. I mean, again, if you actually have in-person checks, then to your point, or check-ins, I should say, for clarity of language, if you're actually going to go visit people to make sure they're real and the thing that they're saying they're doing is legitimate, then again, it cuts out a lot of the issues on the front end because you set up deterrence. You set up a situation where someone cannot lie because they can't create a bunch of kids if they're childcare who don't exist, or they can't create a bunch of patients who aren't real. So I think that in-person is an absolutely brilliant idea. I also think it's smart to stop those payments. And I really like what you said about putting it in escrow, because oftentimes, those of us who believe that you should steward the people's money well, we get accused of being heartless or not caring. But you're not saying that to stop the money for people who need it. You're saying preserve it in escrow so that when we actually do know who those people are, the money is there to provide it to them. And I think that's the exact right way to do it, because again, if any of us, if we were overspending on the credit card, the solution wouldn't be, well, gee, I guess I should just keep spending until I figure it out. You would actually stop spending. That way you can have a better handle on what you're doing. So I think those are two really good solutions, and they have worked. Again, we've seen it at the federal level, and we've seen states do this as well, and it has resulted in prosecutions. Is what they did in Minnesota ultimately, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think, it has to be a balance, right? We are talking about a program that serves the truly vulnerable, and we want to make sure, as we're working to fix it and to put in accountability, that those folks who do need the services get them, and that we can find those bad actors and get them out of the system so that those tax dollars do have more accountability and the folks in need truly can have their needs met. So you've talked about a number of solutions. We have the rulemaking that we're advancing in Maine. Let's say that all three of the items that you suggested, the two rulemaking pieces that we're working on, let's say all of that was implemented tomorrow. How soon would we see the results of that here in Maine? How soon would we actually see those savings show up in the budget? Give us the realistic perspective here.
I think almost immediately. And what I mean by that is, once you've got this elected official in place and you've got the tools with regard to the technologies, and you start to implement these in-person check-ins to verify who's real and who's not, you'll see a few things happen. You'll see some of the folks who are actively committing fraud, they'll recognize that they're not going to be able to do it anymore, and so they'll cut bait. They'll just leave. They'll go try to find somewhere else.
Head to Minnesota, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go to California. They still got easy rules over there. I'll make my money that way. The gold rush out far west. But you'd have the savings there, but then you would also begin to see the monies that you could claw back, because again, as quickly as some of these private businesses that we've worked with, as quickly as they can move, you can start to see, well, here's an improper payment here, here's an improper payment there. These things can add up, which then means you could go to the legislature, this person who is, of course, elected. We'll call them Auditor Libby, just to make up a title of a statewide elected official who would be great in the position. That person could go to the legislature and say, look, we found $20 million or $25 million that was fraud, which means now, legislature, you can not spend that money. You can now have a budget that's $25 million less, which means you can send that money back to the people in the form of a tax cut. That would be my recommendation if it were me. But again, if you've got a legislature that's more philosophically oriented to spending money, well, the very least they could do is actually spend it on the people who need it, because now you've kept the fraudsters out. So they're different philosophical approaches, but this starts when you've got capable leaders who've got the authority, the knowledge, and the courage to do the right thing. So if you had those things, again, whether it was you or somebody who you thought would be good, that's the way that I would advise them to approach it.
I think it's incredible to think that, you know, it wouldn't take years. When you put all those pieces in place, it wouldn't take a decade to see a difference. That change in part in culture helps drive that. When the expectation is that there's accountability in the system, you're right. I think you're going to see some of those fraudsters drop off there pretty quickly because they know their days are numbered and they need to find a new way to scam people in a different place where they can get away with it.